We're at Epcot tonight, enjoying this beautiful fall-like weather, but believe it or not, the weather is not always that way. We actually just got done with a really big hurricane, and we want to talk about some tips and tricks to help you if you're planning a trip and a hurricane is on its way. So we actually just got done with Hurricane Milton. So today is the first day that the parks are open again since the hurricane, and we have been cooped up in our house for a week, so we really just needed to get out of the house. So we're at Epcot. We're gonna try a few eats here at Food and Wine Festival, but we want to share just some tips and tricks of things that we've learned from both coming to Disney during a hurricane and living here during a hurricane, so that you kind of maybe have some ideas or tips or just kind of a little bit better like knowledge of what to do if you are in that circumstance, because I know it can be scary, but don't worry, there are things that you can do to help.
Thank you. You too. First of all, we just wanted to say that our hearts do go out to anyone affected by Hurricane Milton or even Hurricane Helene. We were fortunate here in Orlando, being local. We surprisingly didn't even lose power. But just do know, like, even being as far inland in Orlando, it was still kind of a scary situation to go through that. So just know that, like, this is basically why we're making this video, is if you happen to be on your way to Disney before a hurricane or you're already here during a hurricane, we want to basically set you up for success to basically help ride out the storm, if you will.
We did hit up our first booth at the festival. I've been waiting to try this for a while. It's the Spam. Like, basically it's like a poke bowl, so it's got little bits of roasted Spam and rice and some yummy sauces. Okay, that was really good. Okay, I'm glad we got to try that. Quite tasty. First thing I do want to talk about, though, and this is probably the most important thing, is that you need to be kind to cast members. You have to remember that a lot of the cast members are local. I mean, all of the cast members, they live here. And so the situation, although you may be on vacation and it can be a scary time, it's extra scary for those cast members because they are also thinking about their homes, their families, their pets, their livelihoods. So that is really important to remember, that even though your vacation may be a little bit dampened because of a storm or because of a hurricane, it's not a good excuse to be mean or rude or snippy to cast members. Be kind and be gracious.
Yeah, and especially because cast members might be telling you to do something or maybe not do something. They have your best interest in mind. They're trying to keep you safe. They're doing their job. So be nice to cast members. Don't be a jerk. Please, especially don't be a jerk during this time. And
I would say if you are at all able to, plan ahead and maybe try and sprinkle a little pixie dust on those cast members. It's really easy to hop on like Vistaprint or whatever and basically print out a bunch of little like business cards or like pixie dust thank you cards that just say, hey, thanks for being you, thanks for being here, thanks for helping or like doing your job and creating magic and whatever. We have little stickers that we like to pass out to cast members that say Magic Maker. It's just a little something that can brighten their day, and it's a really easy thing to do. Honestly, anytime. You don't have to do that during a hurricane, but yeah, we like to do that all the time. Just makes their day a little bit brighter. When is hurricane season? So hurricane season is usually going to be most of the year, June through November. I would say that definitely your peak times for hurricanes are going to be kind of around now. So this like August, September, October, those are definitely going to be your more peak times for hurricanes. But truthfully, rainy season, stormy season is any time between June and November. So if you are planning a trip during that time, do make sure that you are taking the weather into account, packing that rain gear, which we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a bit, and just thinking ahead as far as like wardrobe and your shoes and all of those things, especially your expectations, as a lot of times the weather can affect things like attractions, entertainment, all of that good stuff. And if that is something that is a concern for you, or you don't want to mess with the rain, I will say that Florida rains pretty much every day all year round, but it is going to be a lot less rain typically in the winter time months, so December through February, and then once you start kind of hitting into March, April, usually it's sunny skies, but you will also start to see the rain pick up just a little bit then. We may or may not get attacked by this bird while we eat.
He's very distracting.
His leg is broken. Okay, we stopped at Refreshment Port to get the braised beef poutine.
nix the pickle relish, because we all know at this point how Mark Allen feels about pickles and relish.
We have had this, I think we got this last year.
Yes, we had this last year.
Delicious. And a great portion for $10. Yum.
Now we're going to talk about
travel protection. One of the biggest things that people are always going to tell you when a hurricane hits is, this is why you need a good travel protection. And I am going to say yes, but with an asterisk. What you need to know is that travel protection only covers certain things. And yes, it is something that I do highly recommend on any Disney trip, just because it does protect your money, especially as you get closer to cut time and unforeseen circumstances happen. The whole purpose of travel protection is to cover you in the case that you are unable to complete your vacation. So this is going to be things like,
or if something would arise that would prevent you from getting your money back if you can't even go on your trip. Like, so let's say like an emergency type situation.
So your flight has gotten canceled and you're not able, like there are no other flights, or you have a really severe illness that you're not able to come on your trip. You have a family emergency, like something like really drastic happens. But it does also cover some other things like loss of luggage or damage to luggage and like some of those other miscellaneous things. So it is important to know like what exactly your travel protection covers. But then you also need to understand Disney's hurricane policy, because that's like a totally different thing. And depending on the situation, you may use one and not the other, or you may use both. It just kind of depends.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's kind of almost where you need to read the fine print of like what covers what to make sure that all your ducks are in a row if something were to happen on your trip.
So Disney's hurricane policy, so typically Disney's like cancellation policy in general is that once you are within like a certain period of time, so 30 days within, you can cancel or modify your package. You just lose your deposit. But I think it's like if you're within like a week or a few days. I believe
it's 7 days. I think it's 7 days.
Something like that.
It's either 5 or 7 days.
Then you do not get any money refunded for any reason. If there is a hurricane and Disney's hurricane policy goes into place, usually they will waive any cancellation or modifying fees. Now, this is going to be happening in the case that a very severe hurricane is like on its way, or the parks will be closing due to a hurricane.
Right.
And so this isn't something that's going to happen all the time. Disney will announce like when those things happen. So in those cases, your travel protection's not really, like you can use your travel protection for like your flights and things like that. But as far as like your Disney package, that's kind of where those things come into play. Now, additionally with that too, I am going to say that having a travel advisor is going to be infinitely helpful in navigating all of this, because that can be a lot to do all on your own. So if you do need help with planning a trip, my friends at Goofy Getaways, they can help. I'll have that information there, but their goal is to just be in your pocket so that when those weird things happen, they can kind of help you know what to do, and they can help you modify your trip. They can help you cancel your trip. They are going to be a little bit more up to date on all of those policies and things. So I would advise, if you haven't booked your trip already, definitely do it with a travel advisor, because they will help you out.
All of that not just during hurricane season.
Yeah,
that
that's
can
just
be
in general.
Any situation that may arise before or during your trip.
Okay, so what happens if you have your trip planned and you are heading to Disney, but you see that there is a hurricane on its way? What should you do?
Number one, don't panic.
Yes. Now, let's say a lot of it's going to depend on timing, honestly. If it's something where you're a week out and you're checking the weather and you're like, yeah, it's not looking too great, and they have confirmed a hurricane is on its way or whatever, and you have not yet come out, and then let's say Disney's hurricane policy is in place, I highly recommend canceling or moving your trip if you are so able to. You're going to see a lot of things online that are like, oh my gosh, a hurricane's like the best time to go because it's not busy and blah, blah. The reality is, yeah, you might get maybe a low-ish crowd day, but like today is the first day that the parks are open and it is busy.
It's very busy because people haven't been able to come to the parks for a day and a half.
You might get lucky, and like if the parks aren't closing, cool, but you're still going to have a lot of rain, which means a lot of rides are going to be closed, a lot of experiences are going to be closed, and it's not really going to be the full Disney experience that you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And keep in mind too that if you are on your way here and then bam, the hurricane happens, MCO, which is the main airport here in Orlando, was closed for basically 2 days. So you could easily get stuck here. Not like stuck, but you could easily have to extend your trip and
rack up a lot more money.
Rack up more money.
For no reason.
You may or may not have the PTO for it. You might get in trouble with work.
Yeah.
Like those are all things that you have to consider if you are like, I'm just still going to come anyway.
Yeah, so if it's something where you see it coming, you know it's coming, it is going to probably be a wiser decision to move that trip to a time when you can actually come and enjoy all of the money that you're spending.
Yeah. The other thing too is Disney will oftentimes, for those that like maybe were already on their trip and then this hurricane pops out of nowhere, for those that do actually are already here and have to extend their trip, they will oftentimes hold back rooms and prevent new bookings so that way they can essentially house guests that are essentially trapped here for a couple of days.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So let's say, okay, you've kind of hit that point of no return and you're already here, or you got here and the hurricane kind of springs out of nowhere. That is something that happened with this one, is that originally it was kind of more just looking like a tropical storm, but then after Helene, and it just kind of like got really crazy all within like a 24 to 48 hour period.
We had about 4 or 5 days warning before Hurricane Milton actually hit.
So there was a lot of people here that were already in the middle of their trip, or they had just started their trip, and when it got to that point where it was really bad, they were already here. So what do you do in those cases? Because I get it, that can be a little terrifying, but don't panic. Truly, Disney is probably one of the safest places that you can be during a hurricane. Everything here is built to withstand hurricane level winds. And so because of that, this is actually a location, I think we mentioned it earlier, that a lot of locals will even evacuate to, especially those on the coast. A lot of them will come here because it is one of those safest places to be. If you are here and you're stuck here, luckily Disney does a fantastic job at their resorts of making sure that even though everybody is stuck inside, it's still very fun.
If the parks do happen to close for a hurricane while you're here, Disney implements what's called a ride-out crew. These are cast members that essentially volunteer to work at the resorts during the hurricane and when the parks are closed. So they will be basically the experts to go to if you have questions about different amenities and activities that will be offered. Some of the activities that I'm going to mention, I will say they may happen. It's not a guarantee that they will happen. Probably the most common one that you'll see like pictures of on the internet and things is characters in your resort hotel lobby. These could range from a variety of characters. It's not going to be necessarily always Mickey or Goofy or Pluto, whoever it might be. You could even have maybe some rare characters pop up. Who knows? One other thing that I did see specifically during Hurricane Milton is that they did have free play in the arcade for you to basically just go have fun and not have to spend even more money that you weren't planning to and whatnot. A pro tip though for what activities are going to be offered at your specific resort is to check the activities board as well as other just signage that are going to be displayed in the lobby. And of course, listed on those activity boards are going to be things ranging from free activities like movies or trivia to paid offerings like art.
And now for a short little break to ride Figment.
Hello?
Who is this?
It's Figment!
Figment? I thought I told you not to interfere.
But you've got it wrong, Doc. It's not about listening with your ears. It's about listening with your imagination.
Control.
Imagination works best when it's set free.
Now, food is also probably a big concern when you are stuck inside during a hurricane and you can't go anywhere. Luckily, Disney does usually provide like meal kits at the resorts. Typically, these are going to be like peanut butter and jelly kits. They're usually pretty decently priced. They'll also have a lot of other like packaged snacks and things like that. But I would recommend if you can kind of plan ahead and maybe have some snacks in your room ready to go, that will help a lot. They'll also have other things for sale like board games and things because you'll be stuck inside all day. So it's good to have some things going on. Speaking of being prepared, it is important to make sure that your devices are charged and that you have ways to charge your devices in case the power goes out. My favorite are fuel rods. You can pick these up anywhere at the parks in these little kiosks. They're basically little like power banks that you can swap for freshly charged ones. I do recommend buying them ahead of time on Amazon. You can usually get 2 for the price of almost 1. I'll have links for that in the description box, but make sure you have your power banks and all of that stuff charged before the hurricane hits. That way, you'll be ready to go if the power goes out. Hurricanes, tropical storms, you can expect some rain. Now, normally I'm a big fan of umbrellas just because I like that you can also use them for sunny days to kind of hide from the sun. However, they are not going to do you much good in a hurricane or storm because of all the wind. So I recommend having those ponchos and having those rain jackets ready to go. And honestly, you should be bringing those anyway because like I said, it does rain here almost every day. Along with that, you're going to want to make sure you're thinking about your shoes. So closed-toed shoes are probably a good idea after the hurricane just because there's usually going to be a lot of debris around your resort. You don't want to get anything all up in your shoes. But also if you can have some waterproof shoes, those are a good idea. This might be my only time that I would say Crocs could be helpful is because they're closed-toed and waterproof. But normally I would just say make sure your shoes are waterproof so that you're not walking around with sopping wet feet all day.
What I'm about to say might be common sense, but I'm going to say it anyway. Don't go outside during a hurricane. We're from Kansas. We would sometimes go outside during tornadoes. Don't be like, do as I say, not as I sometimes do. Don't drive into flooded water. Turn around, don't drown. Don't approach, I don't know where you would find a down power line here, but especially don't do that. Moral of the story, use common sense. Don't do anything stupid. Watch your children around those types of things. Protect yourself before you wreck yourself. I don't know where I was going with that, but you get the idea. Probably the most important thing, if you take anything from this video, is to set your expectations accordingly. A lot of attractions, experiences, entertainment, things like that may or may not be available before and after the hurricane during the cleanup process. For example, Typhoon Lagoon technically still has yet to open just because there's so much foliage that they're cleaning up. And so just set those expectations accordingly that you may not get to do everything if this is like the tail end of your trip or even the beginning of your trip. You may have to wait a few days for those experiences to become available again.
Moral of the story, be prepared, plan ahead. It's gonna be okay, you got this.
And if you made it to this point in the video, leave us a raindrop emoji in the comments below. And if you happen to be watching this video while you're stuck at Walt Disney World during a hurricane and you need something to do, go watch this video next, or maybe even this one.
That's all we have for you guys today.
Now go create your ever after.